Dave, you mentioned different tools that you can use to, minimize suffering when fasting. I'd love you to break down some of those tools for folks who are interested in fasting. And then also maybe you can speak to the role that just fasting frequency also plays in minimizing suffering with fasting. I know I've found personally that, just the more you fast, the more energy you have while fasting and the more untethered energy becomes from food over time. So yeah, what are some of the tools? And then, how does frequency itself play into that?
What I found is that the easiest thing you can do is have dinner a little bit earlier. Because if you had, say, finished dinner at 6 and then you don't eat dessert, it goes from 6 till 10, that's 4 hours. You sleep for 8 hours, maybe that's 12 hours. And you wake up at 6 a.m. If you have breakfast at 10, you just did a 16-hour fast. But to your mind, you really just kind of had breakfast a little bit late. It's pretty darn manageable. So that's one of the things where maybe it's not as bad as you thought because you were asleep most of the time. And that, though, may create low blood sugar or that feeling of being cold that a lot of people get when they start fasting. And for me at 300 pounds, I would have been unable to do that because I would wake up with this gnawing hunger. So then how do we turn on energy in the body? And there's 3 things that massively change your response to fasting that you're allowed to do during a fast based on science that are offensive to the hair shirt fasters. The water only club gets very mad because mice only had water when they did a mouse study. Therefore, humans should only have water. I do not believe that. There is merit to water only fasting. It's certainly not the only way to do it. So the first thing that massively improves a fast is black coffee. So here's why black coffee actually works. It's because the study that came out at UC San Diego a few years ago found out that the amount of caffeine in 2 small cups of coffee doubles ketone production. And that's really useful because when your ketones go up, this is when your body starts burning fat. When they go up just a little bit, far below the nutritional ketosis levels, it has an effect on a hunger hormone called ghrelin, and it drops that, and it raises a satiety hormone called CCK. So this change that happens in hunger hormones just from black coffee, it's relatively mild, but there's lots of studies that show that coffee reduces hunger anyway, and this is the likely mechanism we just didn't understand before. The second fasting hack, and there's new science to support this that I couldn't have written about because I hadn't funded any research on it way back in the day, and that is you can do bulletproof coffee. What this is the mold-free coffee beans, grass-fed butter, and brain octane or bulletproof MCT. It's a special form of MCT oil. What you end up with in this fourth one is prebiotic fiber. And this is neat. It's a kind of fiber, soluble fiber, not Metamucil sawdust kind of stuff. And what it does is it goes into the body and the body cannot digest it. So it goes into the gut. And then the gut bacteria are like, oh, I can eat this. And when they eat it, they turn it into short chain fatty acids called butyric acid that's anti-inflammatory and pro-ketogenic. So I will just put it to you that there is no one on earth where if you give them a coffee with a little bit of butter, it can have more if they need it, MCT oil and prebiotic fiber, if they drink that, there's no one on earth who's going to look at a muffin an hour or 2 later and go, I really want to eat that. You're actually sated. You don't want food. The voice in your head about food goes away entirely. But then people go, but Dave, there was calories in there. There might have been up to like 75 calories or 100 calories. That's not a fast. And we go back to the hair shirt, water only thing. And then we look at the experts I've interviewed about this, and we look at the mechanisms that are happening during fasting. There's 3 big things that are going on during a fast. One of them is your insulin doesn't go up. None of these things raise insulin at all. Some guys a while back did a study of 300 different breakfast opportunities or different breakfast types to see which one raised insulin the most and the least. Bulletproof coffee didn't change insulin at all. It was the number 1 choice for I don't want my insulin to go up. Having consistently high levels of insulin is bad for you. So there's insulin and there's eating protein. If you eat protein, it raises something called mTOR in the body. And mTOR is a signaling molecule that says grow. And what you want to do when you're fasting is you keep this mTOR low. And mTOR is like a spring in the body. So what you do is you push the spring down and down and down. And then when you do things that allow it to raise, it spikes very high. And people who live a long time have mostly low, but they have high spikes. Because when you spike mTOR, you put on muscle and you get bone density and your brain can grow. But if it's chronically elevated, you get cancer and you get inflammation. And this is why a lot of people who are bodybuilders don't make it far past 60 because they have chronically elevated levels of mTOR. So the idea is, how do I get the spike but not deal with it the rest of the time? Intermittent fasting works well for this. And what's cool is there's 3 things that push mTOR down. One of them is intermittent fasting. Another one is coffee. And another one is exercise. So it's really elegant how all this works together. But if you do it without suffering, it's easier than what you do today.
If what you've heard on Flow Research Collective Radio has been helpful, please consider doing us a solid and leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this. Reviews help us connect to a wider audience so we can get these peak performance principles out to more people.